By now we have started up the Vendettas mode. Now we're gonna go even deeper down that rabbit hole, into the hit list missions. Basically the same thing as Vendettas, but even more pointless. If you're going to skip anything in this Let's Play, I implore you, please skip these videos. But if not, it's time to meet the rest of our, heroes?
Death whistles. The hound comes.
For this video, we will be playing as Inugami. Inugami names himself after a dog spirit of Japan that legends say was created from extreme suffering, trained to exact revenge upon the enemies of its master. As a child, Inugami was forced to witness the slaughter of his entire family, including his little brother, at the hands of the Brotherhood, who had come to retake the sword from his father. Yes, the sword. We don't know anything about the sword yet, but it's his special darkness weapon. So these are the hit list missions. The one down at the bottom is the one we played in the beginning of Vendettas. We can replay it here. Hit list is part level select and part side mission to the side mission. Our target this time is Frank Marshall, a ruthless man with ties to the Brotherhood. Runs the old junkyard on the outskirts of the city that is used by the mob for shady activities such as the disposal of human bodies run on sentence. So, this is the guy who runs the junkyard we shot up in the previous level that we just saw. We're gonna get a little deeper into that junkyard story for some reason.
Snip. Fucking snip.
Hey, zip my pants now.
Yeah, that's why I hate Jimmy, but we don't have to worry about Jimmy right now. We have to worry about Frank Marshall. Like Shoshana, we will be starting off without any upgrade points. Just our weapon.
Frank is there tonight, for some show or something. I don't care. Just go and take him out.
His death shall be on my blade.
They even further half-assed the dialogue in these sections, but at least they bothered to add dialogue at all. Our sword is the Kusanagi. It is melee only. It is a lot more robust than the other weapons when it comes to melee. Each of the characters' unique weapons does have a melee attack. The Kusanagi has 3 melee attacks. 2 of them are basically identical, and the third one just does a little extra damage and is slower. So it's not too exciting, but it's something.
I'm telling you, I got nothing.
There's the thrust. It's the main attack, the one that is slower but does more damage. Inugami also has the means to unleash the swarm. Every character has a special power that they can activate by pressing the Y button, and it has to recharge afterwards. Shoshana and Inugami's are identical to ones that Jackie gets in the main game, but the other 2 have unique ones that are slightly different from anything Jackie can get. And I don't foresee anything interesting happening anytime soon, so on to comic talk. Inugami does not appear in the comics. None of these Special Vendettas characters do, but Inugami at least seems inspired by a character from the comics. There's a man from Hong Kong, a hitman even, hired by the Yakuza to kill Jackie. His name is Tora no Shi, or Tiger of Death.
The hound feels no pain.
So, a cat instead of a dog. Other than that same basic idea, Tora no Shi was a recreational murderer in Hong Kong who decided to go pro because he was so good at it. Other than that, he's not very interesting. Jackie rips him apart in one of his earliest appearances, but then he gets resurrected later. Here's a relic. You know those from the main game? They're in Vendettas mode as well. Just a handful of unique, weird items.
The Hound will cherish this.
Johnny does not tell a story about these Vendetta's relics. They are exclusively for a little extra dark essence. Pick them up, your character gets 300 extra points. Kind of a waste, I guess, but more effort than I expected. Vendetta's mode is basically what would have been like a shitty DLC chapter, but it's free and on the disc.
Well, looks like the rumors are true. Jackie's own little freak show. Here to take me out. Well, let's see you try!
And here is our target, Frank Marshall. He's not here. We have to kill his many, many waves of henchmen first. All these Vendetta's missions are shamelessly padded to hell and back, which if you're playing them the intended way in co-op is a good thing. It means more time hanging out with your friends. But for me it just means more time bullshitting about the comic books. So, I guess we'll talk about the many adventures of Jenny before she's killed in the comics. Since she's already dead in the game, can't really spoil anything there. In the very first issue, she is introduced as a bartender that Jackie is chatting with, while Jackie is picking up other random floozies at the bar. Because Jenny and Jackie are not a couple, they never date in the comic books. Well, that's not entirely true. They date in an alternate continuity that takes place after the universe is destroyed. I'm not going to talk about that. It's irrelevant. But they are childhood friends, of course. They were raised in the same orphanage. So it's not just random coincidence that they're at the same bar together. And she sort of encourages him to do better with his life. Then the darkness emerges and sort of makes that impossible. And when the darkness emerges, it brings with it many enemies. The one I mentioned last time is the cult that Wenders belonged to. Jackie refuses to play ball with the cult, of course, because he's a pain in the ass. He's basically the worst character ever. If he's ever met with a conflict of any sort, he will just walk away from it until it either threatens his life, threatens Jenny's life, or his mob boss tells him to go kill it. And when that happens, he just goes and kills it, effortlessly, because he's omnipotent. In the very beginning of the comic, he's not incredibly powerful just yet. He hasn't learned how to use the darkness. So, when the cult kidnaps Jenny to force Jackie's compliance, he has to get a bit creative to solve that problem.
Enough yet! Lot more coming your way!
He ain't fucking kidding. But Jackie's creative solution to save Jenny is to hold Wenders' dick hostage. We heard about that last time. While Jenny is being held hostage herself, the leader of the cult does some scrying on Jackie while he's having a heart-to-heart with his adoptive father, wherein Jackie admits that he considers Jenny to be more of a family member than a potential sex partner. Jackie has very low opinions of women, except for Jenny.
Kusunagi will not be denied!
The fact that he actually cares about her means that he can never truly love her. Because that's the kind of character Jackie is. So, Jenny's heartbroken. She is definitely in love with Jackie. Meanwhile, Wenders causes some kind of distraction. I kind of forget exactly what, but it gives him ample opportunity to free Jenny from her shackles and get her out of the Statue of Liberty, which is where the cult's base of operations is. The specific instructions he was meant to follow were to get Jenny off of Liberty Island. So he gets her to an escape boat, and she decides she wants some revenge on the cult leader herself. So she runs back into the Statue of Liberty under Wenders' protestations, but it does no good. She can't be convinced, which is what causes Wenders to technically fail his mission and get his entire genital structure reconfigured. In a wonderful moment. Thank you, Garth Ennis. This is the part of the mission where being solo is really, really frustrating. So there's enemies just spread out across this gigantic area, and it's really hard to find the last few. So I guess while we are waiting for the purple dots to show up and indicate where the remaining enemies are so that we can finish this shit and move on to the next phase of this level, we'll wrap up Jenny's story of being a MacGuffin for the first time. She runs back into the Statue of Liberty, whips the shit out of the cult leader with her chains that she was shackled with, but does not kill him. That cult leader survives. Then Jackie swoops in after doing battle with De Angelis, which is why he couldn't save her in the first place. But he wraps up his business and rescues Jenny. They have an awkward conversation about what she overheard him saying. Then she decides to leave New York City. Not just because they can't be together, but because Jackie is unbelievably dangerous to be around. It's a smart move on her part, shows a lot of character agency, and I quite like it, and she isn't heard from again for a very long time. It's a nice piece of character development, actually.
How many more deaths before your own?
Well, you want something done right? You gotta do it yourself. I'm not afraid of you little pricks.
I bleed.
There he is, Frank Marshall, underneath all that power armor. Yeah, these character designs are ridiculous. We've mostly seen really down-to-earth stuff up to this point. Now we're seeing teleporting guys, magical purple chains. It's very out of place. You know, you can always justify it with the darkness. As soon as you introduce one magical element, you might as well introduce them all. We've shot Frank quite a bit at this point, and his health bar is still completely full. Once we break his armor, he'll start falling apart pretty quickly, but that armor is sturdy. Our heavy gun, the Striker, is the best rifle pretty much in the entire game, actually. But we don't have a ton of ammo for it, so we can't rely on it too heavily. And his backup is very dangerous. We want to kill all of his minions before we really focus him down. The fact that he's melee only for his special darkness weapon makes the swarm ability extra useful, because you got to be able to close that distance. Also helping him close the distance is an improved sprint function. Unique to his character, if you do a sprint, he will keep running for a very, very long time. Much, much longer than Jackie or any of the other characters. He even has an upgrade where he will gain increased defenses while he is sprinting. Something I never actively noticed, but you feel it in the gameplay. It's quite useful. There's what his chain does. It will pull your weapon out of your hand if you let it. But we got our weapon back. Now we just gotta kill Frank Marshall. Without his armor, he's dead meat.
Finally, it is done.
And now you know the rest of the story of how a lame-ass generic villain died.